What was that, Kramser? You something to say?
I literally, all I said was easy squeezy lemon peasy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Kramser coming at you with another remastered, redoing one of the lists I did a while ago by myself. Today we're going to rank the 7 studio albums of The Cars. The Cars are a band that I like a lot. Kind of unique, a lot of big hit singles, and a lot of good deep album cuts. What are you guys' thoughts?
Agree, 100%. Very cool, which was why Joe and I went all in on the cool factor. Best, coolest ensemble I've got. Wet hair, sunglasses, black blazer, and a free Winona t-shirt. I think they're awesome. I don't really dislike any of the albums. A couple of them I love. They're not my favorite band, but they have like an insane like Rotten Tomatoes score for me for songs. Like almost like no songs that I dislike. Like you can put on any part of any album and I will at least enjoy some of it. So, I love their style and their, attitude and their approach and, just kind of that early pop guitar rock sound. And then it went, a little bit more synth 80s driven, maybe a little sweeter and sugary, but they just have such a good instinct for pop rock writing. It's really impressive.
Yeah, the Cars are great. I don't know. Does anyone not like the Cars? I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious, right from the bat, right off their debut in '78. They were pretty much awesome. I don't know, they're probably my favorite new wave kind of rock. I mean, they're hard to kind of categorize. I guess it's like new wave pop. They're definitely sort of rockier than most of their peers, a little less into the experimental stuff. But they were just a good band and probably get taken for granted how good and how consistently good they were, probably because they only had the 7 albums. They were only, really popular for 6 years or so, from the debut to Heartbeat City, and then they sort of lost popularity, got lost in the shuffle in the 80s. But yeah, probably taken for granted. Great band, great guitarists, Elliot Easton, great lyrics, great, there's no weak parts of the band, I don't think. So this was a very enjoyable listography to do. I would assume we're all going to have this one at the bottom. Maybe not. You never know with some of you people. But I got Move Like This at my number 7. We go through this every listography. It's these like comeback albums that are pretty much unnecessary. I don't think this adds anything to the legacy of the Cars. It's not embarrassing. It's not terrible. The album cover is terrible. Really expect more from the Cars. I don't understand. The songs, Free and Blue Tip are all right. Everything else just doesn't have the hooks, doesn't have that Cars-ness that made their first run so special. It's just kind of paint by numbers stuff, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just, what it is, a unneeded 2000s comeback album from a classic rock band.
You haven't said your catchphrase in a while, and I thought you were about to.
No, it didn't make me want to kill myself at all. Totally alive.
Kind of threw me for a loop there. You were setting it up for what I would think everyone thought would be the obvious number 7, which I was ready to dismiss. My number 7 is actually Panorama, which is awesome. I'd give it 3.5 out of 5, maybe even close to 4. I mean, I love all these albums. To me, it's just a little bit too much of a transition record, but it's so cool and dark and moody and visceral and cerebral. Kind of dropped, probably is the album that has the least amount of the pop elements to it, but still the style and everything on it is really cool. Title track's great. Touch and Go's okay, probably my least favorite on it, just because I know it's like supposed to be a little clunky and offbeat, but a little too much for me. But Give Me Some Slack, Misfit Kid, Down Boys, All really awesome stuff. I think just for what I want with the Cars, it lacks the most, but I still really like it. So number 7 is Panorama for me.
Both of those are incorrect. The bottom should absolutely be Door to Door. Easily the worst production. The production on this record sucks. It's a really cheesy sounding record, and it's easily the worst batch of songs that they ever came up with. It's the only record of theirs that I would say is bad. All the other ones are at least decent. This is not a good record.
Well, I'm shook by both of your choices for that blows my mind. I'm sure the viewers are going to back me up on this one, because both of those are just ludicrous. But my 6 is Door to Door, so it's not that ludicrous, I guess, Jason. But it's far superior to move like this. That's kind of mind-blowing. It's not great. Door to Door. Tata Weo Weo is okay. You Are the Girl's okay. It's a little too sweet, a little too bubblegum. I didn't listen that hard for the production. I know it's produced by Ric Ocasek, so I guess he's not perfect. But I mean, I didn't hate it. It's just another one where the songs, it's kind of a big step down from Heartbeat City. It doesn't have any of those super catchy singles. So it's just okay. It's missing Elliot Easton, I think, a lot. It's too synth driven, not enough guitar. And the songs just aren't as good. It's just sort of that last gasp of a band that's kind of winding down. And I think without Mutt Lange there to sort of tighten everything up, it's definitely missing something.
I also have Door to Door at number 6, but I like it considerably more than either of you. I know the critics really panned it and it didn't do well on the charts, but I still really like it. It's a pleasant surprise for me. I used to listen to it without really knowing what the critics thought of it, and I always thought it was fine. The biggest problem, like Joe said, is it just doesn't have those standout tracks. The songwriting isn't the strength of the album, but I do think it's got some I like the production on it. It's probably their closest to like a bigger arena rock style record, with like heavier synth and kind of just simple guitar power chords, but I really dig it. I think there's sort of a low-key amount of variety on this, which I kind of like. Maybe if we would have gotten an album after this, we would have seen something cool happen. It could have been a transition record without us knowing, but I like Fine Line. I like Tata Weo Weo. Strap Me In is really cool. I think Door to Door is kind of a cool closer. I don't really have anything that bad to say about it. I don't really have anything bad to say about the Cars, so every one of these albums is just going to be building and building on what I like about it, with probably the top 3 being ultimate cream of the crop, which, evident from our album of the year lists, will be among the ones that were nominated by at least some of us. So number 6, Door to Door.
My number 6 is Move Like This. Joe's assessment is fairly accurate, although I think it's better than he's giving it credit for. I think it's actually better than could have been anticipated. I think I would have expected it to sound the way Joe sold it. But I think it's actually a good bit better than that. It's not necessary, and it doesn't recapture their former glory. I think Ben Orr is fairly missed on it, but all things considered, I think it's a strong set of songs, a lot of catchy tunes. It's pretty decent. It's a good listen. Yeah, I think it's easily better than Door to Door, but also easily worse than everything else.
All right, moving on. All right, now we're into the meat of the Cars for everyone except Kramzer for some reason.
We have one album different right now. One.
Yeah, but it's blowing my mind.
Every episode now. You call out someone for how bizarre it is for their placement, and then you do it the next round as if there's this monumental gap between number 11 and 12 and or whatever.
Listen, putting Panorama last really kind of just threw my whole world out of sync.
I still like it a lot. A lot. It's at least a B+ album. It's really awesome. I like all of these. Just
okay. Fair enough.
Put shades back on. Commit to the project.
All right. For number 5, I've got Shake It Up. And this is their original run. I think this is probably just the weakest of it as far as sort of the album cuts go. Since You're Gone, awesome opener. Shake It Up's pretty good. I'm Not the One's pretty good. I really like Cruiser. But the second half kind of drags. I think the songs are too long. We're up to like 5 minutes a song, which I just don't expect that. Don't really want that from the Cars. I want the shorter stuff in general, the poppier stuff. You can kind of hear some of the drums start to be replaced by like drum tracks, and it's good. But I think it's easily sort of weaker than their other ones in this kind of classic run from their debut to Heartbeat City. So it's good. It's a little more poppy, but it's still a solid album from the Cars. I think everything from this point on is pretty much great.
Now that is unacceptable. I'd like to go back and watch the Pretenders video because I kind of feel like maybe our instincts and our feelers on these albums might be kind of similar to what we like most about Pretenders. Might be interesting to see how that kind of lines up. But my number 5 is going to be Move Like This. Did it need to be made? I don't know. That kind of goes back to our Burnout Fade Away discussion, where if they felt like making a record in 2011, so be it. It's pretty good, and they didn't reinvent the wheel. They just kind of stuck to their guns and made like a Cars like greatest hits album of songs that don't exist. It kind of encompasses all of the different sounds of all of the first 6 albums a little bit, which I really like. So it kind of plays for me as like a really nice, just kind of like farewell album where this is kind of the last gasp, what we've got left of the tank. Jason's right. It's a pretty good batch of songs. It's better than expected, although it sounds to me what you would expect. Like I said, just straight up Cars, nothing crazy. But I mean, I think it's pretty good. It's tuneful. Too Late and Blue Tip are good. And then you've got some kind of moodier stuff, more like mopey stuff like Take Another Look. Sad Song, I think, is really good. Free is good. I got no problem with it. A little bit better than Door to Door, which I like a little bit more than Panorama, which I still love.
Sorry, Kram. I'm with Joe. Number 5 is Shake It Up. I think it's a really good album. First half's really strong. It is front-loaded, though. The back half kind of falls apart a bit. But the reason it's lower on my list than the others is because it's kind of just playing it safe. It's kind of the most like middle of the road Cars record. I don't think the songs are as good as the records that preceded it, and the production's not as interesting as on Heartbeat City. So it's fine, but I don't think it stands out the way that the other records do.
Well, this one, I've been going back and forth on this, and this kind of has thrown my entire Listography album of the year into chaos as far as thinking back and maybe not regretting, but I feel like I may have overrated this a tad bit. So my number 4 is going to be Heartbeat City. Yes, Kramser.
Finally, I see you, man. It is a little overrated.
I mean, the hits are fantastic. I love Hello Again, Magic, Drive. You might think, Why Can't I Have You, Heartbeat City. Oof. Now that I say that, there's some strong tracks. It's really like on the edge here. Oh, this is tough. All right, no, I'm changing it.
What?
So I gotta go number 4, my original choice. I'm gonna go with Panorama as number 4, and I love Panorama because it's a little darker, a little more. I don't know, it's not like sinister, but there's like this darkness kind of creeping in. That's the thing about Panorama. The hits definitely aren't as good because really Touch and Go was really the only single, and it kind of underperformed. And I do love Touch and Go. I think Elliot Easton's guitar work might be his best on that track. There's some awesome stuff on it. I really like Panorama as the opening track. I really like Give Me Some Slack. Don't Tell Me No. It's really good too. Kind of has like an Elvis Costello vibe, which I dig. It's just, it's a really good album. And I think it's probably the most underrated in their catalog. Probably because it is sort of missing that shiny, sheeny, happy-go-luckiness maybe that the debut and Candy-O have. But yeah, I think I made the right choice putting this number 4. I'm okay with that. So, all right, I'm good. Moving on.
The most underrated is Door to Door because most people think it's bad and it's better than average. So that's my call. Number 4, for sure, not changing, is Candy-O, which also really, really good. Just kind of like in the shadow of the debut a little bit. And It's All I Can Do is probably my least favorite of their hits. A lot of the more lesser known tracks on this that don't get a ton of radio play are awesome, like Candy-O and Night Spots are really awesome. I think Elliot Easton is the star of the show on this album. He really he really flashes off his skill quite a bit, especially in the solos. Dangerous Type and Let's Go to bookend the album is awesome. I don't really have too much to complain about it. I like that it's kind of more of a straightforward rock record, you know, not as many of the big double chorus hooks and refrains, but everything's there that you want. The style is great. It just doesn't quite have the pristine songwriting as some of the other stuff or the vibe of some of the other albums, but an incredibly strong number 4. And I don't really remember even talking about it an album of the year for albums that didn't make the top 5, but should have at least been thrown out there. So did either of you guys nominate Candio? I don't remember.
No, it was close for me though. It was in consideration.
79 was just stacked, so no, it fell off. On second thought, maybe it should have been, but probably not strong enough to get in my top 5, but definitely a top 10, I think.
All right, my number 4 is going to be Panorama. And I actually think from my original listography, I'm switching this and Shake It Up. I think I had them flipped the first time that I did this, but I don't know. I just like this record a lot. It's really dark. It's kind of weird, a little bit different than their other stuff. And I think it does falter a little at the end, but I think you get, on this record, I think you at least get in pretty deep into side 2 before the tracks sort of decline in quality, where I think Shake It Up is kind of split down the middle, like the strong material on side A and the weaker material on side B. I really, really like the title track, Touch and Go, Give Me Some Slack's really cool, Misfit Kid's awesome, Don't Tell Me No is awesome. So a lot of standouts for me on this one. Elliot Easton is great. So yeah, I'm giving it the edge over Shake It Up this time around.
A wise decision, I think, Jason. I think we're all with you on that one.
I am not.
Number 3 for me, I got Heartbeat City. As you may have noticed, as soon as I read off the list of hits from it, I changed my mind and put it back my original slot at number 3. It is razor close, I think, with Panorama, because I like the weirdness of Panorama, and this is obviously, it's a Mutt Lange production, so it's going to be pop to 10, 11, 12. It's just off the charts, but Hello Again, great album opener. I think Magic and Drive are 2 of their stronger sort of like 80s, like super 80s pop songs. Maybe a little too much synth, a little not enough Elliot Easton on this, but I like Heartbeat City a lot. It's kind of the darkest song, a little more sinister than the rest of the bubblegum stuff, but you might think classic, Why Can't I Have You, classic. It's just loaded. The other tracks, hit or miss. There's so many hits. You just can't deny the greatness of all those singles. So yeah, it's a fantastic album. It was in my top 5 for 1984. And I stand by that again after some moments of self-doubt. So number 3 for me, Heartbeat City, great album.
Yeah, it's a great album. Before in the video, I said that it was a little overrated, and it's not. That was really just a shot at Jason. But it's it's awesome. Although I'm gonna defend my picks that haven't been made yet, like Shake It Up. If you're gonna say Shake It Up is front loaded, you gotta say the same about Heartbeat City. And it might be a little bit too poppy. It's their biggest pop album, a little bit too much Mutt Lange for my top 2 spots. I like kind of the more raw guitar driven stuff for my top 2 picks. So, for the first 20 seconds of this album, when you think it's a Def Leppard record, it's just a little too much for me. There's no doubt, like Joe was saying, some of the tracks on here are just tremendously awesome. Drive and Magic, Stranger Eyes is awesome. Heartbeat City closes it out as really cool. But I don't dislike You Might Think or Why Can't I Have You, but they don't stand up to the other of the greatest hits sort of catalog for the Cars. So yeah, I'm kind of with Joe. Wish there was maybe just a little bit less of the hoopla and a little bit more Elliot Easton. But and I do think kind of the cool guy, lovesick Romeo style of Ocasek gets lost a little bit here, but still a really good record. And Jason, I'm sure we'll talk more about the production shortly, and the production's awesome. So
I will. But right now, my number 3 is Candio. It gets lost in the shadow of the debut, but it's really, really good. Really great follow-up. One of the stronger sophomore efforts that you'll find, not a sophomore slump at all. And I'm not sure exactly why it doesn't get more recognition. It does. I think, front to back, the debut is pretty solid. There are a couple tracks on this record that are like little hiccups, but the good stuff is really, really good. Double Life, Dangerous Type, Got a Lot on My Head, the title track. It's just a lot of great songs. And like Kram said, Elliot Easton's playing on it is fantastic. Not much to complain about here. Really, really, really strong number 3.
Well, so what do you think the hiccups are?
Shooby-doo a little bit. Yeah, You Can't Hold On Too Long, Lust for Kicks. Those would be, not like all-time great Cars songs.
I'd probably agree with that.
I don't know if I agree with that at all, Jason. And I'm going to talk about it because Candy O is my number 2. Honestly, I mean, this album is better than I thought, better than I remembered. And I think what throws me off is the weakest song on the whole album is Let's Go. And that opens it. Don't like that song very much. It was used in like a Hertz commercial, and that really killed it for me even more. It's just, I don't know, a little too much sort of clappy, handsy stuff. And then Since I Held You, probably my second least favorite track on the whole album. So that kind of, I think, always threw me off because everything after that is just phenomenal. I like It's All I Can Do. I love Dangerous Type. I really like Got a Lot on My Head and Lust for Kicks. Those are kind of, it's a little more new wavy, I think, than the debut. Elliot Easton, like you guys said, just awesome work on this. He's really sort of, more apparent. I think his riffs and guitar lines kind of take maybe the most precedence here. And other than that kind of slow start, it's just the second half's immaculate. I really like Lust for Kicks, the kind of the synth Elvis Costello-y sound. And it's just a really good album. Probably have discounted it too much in my life. I won't do that again. Maybe it's less kind of celebrated because that the debut kind of came out of nowhere. It had this completely unique sound. And this kind of, follows it. It's just a year later. People are still listening to the debut. It's still in the charts. Probably kind of bubbled under a little bit, but, it definitely shouldn't be. It should be celebrated for its greatness, and a strong number 2 for me in Candy O.
It's really good, and good call saying that it had more of the new wave influence on it. It definitely does. The first one is more kind of guitar pop rock with new wave influences, and you're right, that one does kind of tip over the edge a little bit. I'm a little bit shocked you don't like Let's Go, though, as someone who I think 12,000 times on this channel has said, love me some synth. The synth lead on that song is just awesome, so that throws me through a loop, buddy. My number 2 is going to be Shake It Up. The thing I'd say first of all is I think it's the most interesting album, and that's not to say I don't disagree with some of the stuff you guys were saying. It kind of is like the most straightforward Cars album, but I really kind of like that also. I think it's probably the best lyrical album. I think there's kind of like this undercurrent of like just some more negative emotions and negative feedback on this album than most of the other stuff. It is front loaded, but I don't think the back half is bad. I like Think It Over and Maybe Baby a good bit. And then the first 5 tracks for me are probably just the best chunk of 5 tracks you can find. Other than the debut, not a bad song in that first half. And I think this is probably the one where Ocasek's style comes across the most for me, which I really love. So I think just for me personally, it's that perfect blend of like the style and the attitude, and Elliot Easton coming in and just kind of doing some of the more perfect stuff. And it's got a good bit of some of my top 10 favorite songs of the Cars. So it was close between that and Heartbeat City for number 2 and 3, but just edges it out a little bit more for the coolness factor and a little bit less pop for me. So a little bit less Mutt Lange.
All right. Well, I'm sticking with my original order from my original listography, and it's a bit controversial. I'm going with the debut at number 2. I mean, we've talked about it a number of times on this channel before. And we talked about it in the Great Debuts video. We talked about it in 78. All 3 of us had it in our top 5. So it's a great record, pretty much front to back hits. But if I'm holding it up against Heartbeat City, I get more tired of the hits on this record than I do on Heartbeat City. I don't really ever need to hear Just What I Needed again. And even though they're great tunes, compared to the other Cars hits, I don't think, Good Times Roll really stacks up. And I don't know. It's a great record. But I have to defend why the other one's ahead of it. So I don't mean to put this down, but if I'm nitpicking, that's why.
Is that it? Is all you're going to say? Okay. Well, for my number one, I have the debut, The Cars. Came out in 1978, which it was a runner-up in 1978 only because Van Halen decided to come out with their debut the same year. And this is probably, I don't know, the second best debut of all time. Definitely up there, probably top 5. Just insane that they had this many hits and this many awesome songs on their very first album. And I think I disagree with Jason. I think it kind of the opposite. I kind of get more tired of the Heartbeat City hits, a little faster than this one, even though you can probably hear these on the radio a little bit more. I'm kind of with them on Good Times Roll. I've heard that song 800 million times. I still like it, but it's kind of one I don't need to hear ever again. Just What I Needed, maybe the same territory, but I still like My Best Friend's Girl. I love that guitar solo from Elliot Easton, kind of rockabilly style. Just amazing. His work on this is just awesome. And then, You're All I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo, and All Mixed Up as the second half is just, mind-blowing. It's just pretty much perfect. I can't think of a single bad thing to say about him. I'm trying to think of like one thing, maybe. Nope, it's perfect.
What Joe said. My number one, the debut. It was my winner for 1978. I like Van Halen, but this shit's all over it. This is fascinating to me. It's one of the rare instances where Jason is going to prefer 80s production to 70s production. It's not going to happen a lot, folks. So, if your kids are out of the room, bring them in right now. It's the moon landing. They got to see this. He is going to say he likes the overblown 80s production more. Heartbeat City's great, but there's no denying, if you're nitpicking and saying that there's some of the hits that you're kind of sick of on this, even if you say 2 of the hits, cool. You got 7 others that are still on the album. It's ridiculous. Like Joe said, which side's better? I don't know. It's immaculate. It's textbook. It's formula. It's not formula, but it could be a formula for the future because it's just so good. All of the songs are almost the same length. Like it's the technique and the songwriting is amazing. It's awesome. Number one of the better debuts of all time and easily my favorite Cars album. Although Candio on up, I think are all great records.
All right. Yes. So actually, the most underrated Cars record is Heartbeat City because it is their best, and most people don't think it's their best. Yes, there's a lot of Mutt Lange. Yes, it's very slick and it's very synth-heavy. But as far as very slick 80s productions go, it is hands down the best. I think it's one of the best sounding records ever made. The EQ of every single track is absolutely perfect. Everything sits in the mix exactly where it should be. I mean, seriously, if you've never listened to this on good headphones, you're missing out because it is remarkable. The tracks are great. Songs are catchy. For me, it's just one of the most immaculately produced records of all time. It's a no-brainer for me.
That would be a really good episode to do in the future, just the best sounding albums of all time.
This would be up there. I do normally prefer like really warm sounding 70s production, but in this realm, this is the best it was ever done, I think. So there you have it. Our ranking of the Cars records, pretty much what I expected. Cram going a little higher with Shake It Up than I would have thought, but all right. I'm interested to see what our picks for the songs are. So tune in tomorrow to check that out. And in the meantime, hit like on this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do that. Hit the bell for notifications and check out the description below for links to all of our social media accounts. And we will see you next time.